the time when the oceans drank Atlantis and the rise of the sons of Arius, there was an age undreamed of. And unto this, Conan, destined to bear the jeweled crown of Aquilonia upon a troubled brow. It is I, his chronicler, who alone can tell thee of his saga. Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
Conan the Barbarian is a genre classic, although it only received mixed critical approval at its release in 1982. The movie was often dismissed for having too much violence, inferior acting, flat characters, fascist undertones, and a tedious pacing and plot. Even though I liked the movie, I never considered it an intelligent movie worthy of a deeper analysis. But my opinion changed last year when I chose to listen again to the fabulous soundtrack by Basil Poledouris. I may not have had a high opinion of the movie, but I was always 100% sure that the score was beyond a doubt one of, if not the best soundtrack of the 80s. For months I listened to the music, watched a few of the movie scenes, read some comments on YouTube as well as a few analyses, and those comments slowly began to fester inside me. I began to realize that the story of Conan the Barbarian wasn't being told with words, but through images. I realized that if I wanted to understand the movie, the plot and the character, that I had to pay close attention to the visuals and connect them with the sparsely strewn pieces of dialogue. What I found then immensely increased my respect for the movie. I can't imagine that a movie like this would get made today, or that many mainstream directors would have the talent and courage to try to do what John Milius tried to do with Conan the Barbarian. Maybe it isn't the most artistic movie, but it definitely has artistic elements in it which clearly elevated it above similar movies that tried to imitate its style and commercial success. Most of my analysis will focus on how the theme and solution to the Riddle of Steel is explored and visually expressed in the movie. But I will also present other visual details that I found and which will result in a better understanding of the movie's themes and plot. The movie opens with a famous Nietzsche quote, "That which does not kill us makes us stronger." And this is our first introduction to the Riddle of Steel. The quote, of course, is not to be taken literally, because you certainly won't become stronger if you survive losing an arm or leg. What it really refers to is an individual's capacity to overcome setbacks, tragedies, and nearly impossible challenges through perseverance and willpower. And this is perfectly in tune with the movie's main plot, the Riddle of Steel, which is all about courage and willpower. After a brief introduction by the wizard Akiro, we get the first actual images of the movie, which is liquid steel being cast into a mold. We are witnessing the forging of a sword. It is the sword that Conan's father is making for his son, and shortly after we see the molten steel, the movie title also appears in the same frame. This is a very interesting shot that means many things at the same time. All the letters of the opening credits are written in a steel design, which thematically foreshadows and embeds the movie in the Riddle of Steel. And in this image, we even see the name Conan next to the mold, which has the shape of a sword. This immediately connects Conan with the Riddle of Steel and the sword that is being forged right now. The sword therefore becomes a symbol for the Riddle of Steel, for Conan, and for his father. The forging of the sword can also be understood as the birth of Conan, even more so since both his parents are involved in the making of the sword, and they both appear on the screen before Conan does, which would be the natural order of things. First we see the father, then the mother, and only then Conan himself. The birth metaphor is further emphasized by the fires of the forge. Notice how the fire and the flames don't really come into contact with the father. The fire is one of his tools, and his hammering is spreading fire, sparks and steel in all directions, but nothing ever really touches him. Compare this with the first image that we get of Conan's mother. The flames of the fire are constantly going up and down and dancing before her face, as if they are about to consume her. And since the flames are a direct result of the work of Conan's father, we can understand them as a representation of him, meaning that he is symbolically impregnating his wife with Conan. And the very next thing that we see emerging from these flames is in fact Conan. However, the birth metaphor doesn't end here. In the next shot we are released from the darkness and density of the forge when the sword is being held up in the air. This corresponds to a newborn child leaving the darkness of a mother's womb, as well as being held in the arms of a father for the first time. The birth process is then brought to an end by quenching the sword in the snow, which is metaphorically corresponding to cutting the umbilical cord. After that, the child is cleaned from the remains of the birthing process and clothed.